videos, we've talked about how you want to make a change to your financial situation by managing your money better. We've talked about where your money's going, so what your expenses are. This video, we're going to talk specifically about your bank account and the setup that they're in. This will be the simple version. We'll get into more in-depth versions later, but this is the bare minimum that you should be looking for within a bank and also within your own everyday setup. In this video, we're going to talk about your bank accounts. This is the first step to actually setting up where your money goes and how to organize and structure it properly. But in my opinion, the golden number of bank accounts is 5. 5 accounts will allow you to break up your wage, give you some spending money, but also provision for specific things like your bills. Maybe you're saving for a house or a car, you're saving for a holiday, and just to have something in reserve. We're going to start with bank account number 5, the emergency account. Every single person should have an emergency account. It needs to be built up to a minimum of $2,000 and ideally 3 months of your living expenses. This is going to take time to do, but doing it now will save you in the future. I have a few friends that follow this process and I myself follow it. I have luckily not had to use it yet, but some of them have. And this money has really saved them in a time of need when if they didn't have access to this money, would probably have struggled with their finances for a little while, if not indefinitely. $2,000, that's how much money needs to be in. If you're fortunate enough to be able to put $2,000 into this account straight away, great, do it. If you're not, start building up. $10 a week. Every time you go out, do you really need to spend that extra $10 on another drink? Into that account. Build it up to $2,000. Once you get to that point, work out your expenses for 3 months. This could include your rent, your phone bill, add it all up, and then basically hit that number by saving and saving and saving and saving. And once it hits that number, don't touch it. We'll talk about what type of account you want to have depending on your situation, but for now, that's just the premise of your emergency fund. Bank account number 4 will be your fun account, big fun. What type of fun counts as big fun? A holiday, buying a car, buying something generally over the price of $1,000. The third bank account is your house account. Every single person wants to buy a house. Even if you say you don't, I'm sure that at the back of your mind, you've thought about it before. This bank account is strictly for saving for a house. We'll talk about how much of your wage you want to be putting in there, and it's not a dollar value, it's a percentage value. But for now, your third account is your house account. The second account is your daily expenses account. This is bank account number 2. Now, we've talked about what your daily expenses are in the last video. Anything that you need to spend money on to keep moving forward with your life. This one is probably the most important, and the way we're going to structure this will depend on your living costs and your living expenses. I save $3,000 and then every week I'm spending money from that account. But when I get paid, I put a specific percentage of my wage into this bank account. And when I get paid, if there's more money left over than the $3,000 mark, if I don't spend a lot for a couple of weeks and I get back to that $3,000, that's excess, that's overflow, and that goes into other accounts. We'll talk about that more in depth. But for now, bank account number 2 is your daily expenses. And bank account number 1 is your everyday spending bank account. So this is, you're going out with friends for lunch, you're going to the movies, you want to buy yourself a new item of clothing. This is anything that is just a fun purchase that's pretty cheap and you basically want to have X amount of dollars in there. We'll talk about it in a second. But for now, bank account number 1, your main bank account, your everyday spending account is just your bank card account. So there they are. Number 5 is your emergency fund. Number 4 is your big fun, everything over $1,000. Number 3 is your house account. Number 2 is your daily expenses, the things you must spend money on to survive. And number 1 is your fun, everyday spending account. So now let's establish why 5 is the optimum number. If you have 5 bank accounts that all serve a purpose that basically make up your wants, desires, and your everyday life, you can then put money into those bank accounts accordingly and actually know where to take money from, know when you have money to take money from those accounts, and live pretty comfortably because you're not overspending and you know where your money is. So if something unexpected happens, you can account for that because you've got money in places that you need it to be. So you know what you want. We have 5 bank accounts and we know what their purposes are. Now it's time to determine which bank is right for you and the process to changing over to that bank. I've looked into it myself, I've read books, I've looked at the banks online, I've done all the work, and my process is pretty simple. You need to do the task though, I can't do it for you. There are 2 main ways to search for a bank. The first is literally Googling your local banks and doing a search on their website about what the offers they have are. The second is going into a local branch for each of your banks. I'm sure there's a shopping center near you. You can go in, actually speak to someone there who will give you all the information you need. What are you going to do if you're going to go into a branch? You're going to take a piece of paper with your notes and ask them the relevant questions that you need to know before signing anything. Do not sign anything until you know what you're getting into. You may not be in the best situation because your bank may just be the default bank that your parents set you up with when you were born, or your school set you up with, or you just set up yourself not really doing much research into it because it was the local bank. There are lots of banks anywhere in the world. It doesn't matter where you live. I'm sure that you have options. All right, so here's what you need to write down. 1, lots of banks charge admin fees for each account. So some banks charge an administration fee for having bank accounts, which is dodgy as they charge you like $5 per bank account just to have a bank account. If you have 5 bank accounts and you go with this setup, that's $300 a year just to have bank accounts. That's crazy. So the first thing you're looking for is a bank that charges no fees on their accounts. You can ask them or probably find the information online. The second thing you're looking for is banks that offer incentive savers, maxi savers, term deposits, a savings account setup that basically will give you a high interest rate. Now, interest rates are pretty crappy, they're pretty low. However, you're still trying to get the best bang for your buck. You're trying to get the best deal possible. Compare the interest rates on the savings accounts they offer and find the one that is the highest. I think here in Australia at the moment, ING or UBank are the 2 highest. However, they do have some criteria that you need to meet in order to get that interest rate. But you're looking for the percentage of interest that they will pay you for having a bank account with them. I think 2.8 or 2.85% is the highest at the moment. Third thing is that these banks that offer these great deals, high interest rates, they generally come with a catch. Something like you have to deposit a certain amount of money into their bank accounts within that month, or you have to spend X amount of dollars on your card in order to get the bonus interest that they offer. Now, some aren't too unreasonable, and depending on your situation, it may be a little bit more difficult to reach. But what you need to do is do a little bit of research and try to figure out and understand whether or not it's achievable for you. The fourth thing that you need to look into is to make sure that the bank itself will allow you to have 5 bank accounts. It's great if the bank doesn't charge you any fees, but you're only allowed to have 1 bank account. It's not super common. However, you do need to ask the questions. You need to figure out if the bank will allow you to have a minimum of 5 bank accounts without any fees. So there you have it. They're the 4 main things you need to look for. Write them down. Does this bank charge me for having bank accounts? The information is there. They have to tell you. You can ring them as well. 2, what type of bank accounts do they have? Do they have savers, interest savers, maxi savers, term deposits? Do you have to lock your money in to save it? Look at the different bank accounts they have. And the one you want is a saver account that you can access, you can take money from, or put money in at any time that will give you the most interest out of all of the banks that you've looked into. Now let's talk about the 5 accounts that you want to have and what type of bank accounts you want them to be. Excluding if you've purchased a house, just ready to start saving money and sort yourself out. For your emergency account, you want it to be a high interest saver, that's preferable, or anything really that generates interest that doesn't cost you anything. Here in Australia, you have things like incentive savers or maxi savers, where you just put money into them and never take money out, because your emergency account you should never really be taking money out of it, and it pays you a certain interest rate every single month as long as you don't take any money. If you take money out, you lose the interest. For your fun account, this one you probably will be taking money out of pretty regularly. if you're saving for a holiday, you're trying to get to $5,000, let's say, you're going to pull the money out eventually. It's the same thing. You want it as like a maxi saver, incentive saver, where you want to build up that money. You want it to be earning you interest over time. The idea is that you want to get as much interest as possible. You have to work out what the criteria is. You might have to put $1,000 into it a month. You might just have to make sure you put money into it until you get to what you want to save it, like a goal saver maybe. And that account is the same thing. You just want to make sure that you're maximizing the interest you can get in return, and there's no real like lock-in fees or anything, because you probably will take money out of that account eventually. Okay, your third account, the house account. Now this is the big one. You can have this account however you want. Once you start really saving money, that money is going to pile up big time. So you want the maximum interest you can possibly have on this account. And to think about it, you're not going to take out any money from this account. I found a way to never take money out of this account until I got to the point where I had enough that I could buy a house. You should do the same. Now let's talk about accounts 1 and 2, your daily expenses and your everyday spending. Your daily expenses is the one that you need to spend money on to survive. Petrol, your phone bill, etc. So these two accounts, you need to be able to spend money from. So you need them to be card accounts. Usually card accounts aren't savings accounts, so you won't generate any interest on them. But the main thing is that you can spend money from these accounts and you have a card for each. So there it is. Your emergency account and your big fun account, you want them to be high interest savers that you can put money into, and if you have to, take money out, but ideally you don't want to be taking money out. Your house account has to be the account that gives you the most interest and allows you to basically just dump as much money into it as you possibly can. And accounts 1 and 2, your expense accounts, are card accounts, and it doesn't matter if they generate interest or not. So when we get to the tracker episode where we build a spreadsheet that shows you all of your information, I'm going to go through it step by step. For now, understand that what you're wanting to do is find a bank that will basically allow you to have 5 bank accounts without any fees or impossible criteria to meet. You want to set them up and just call them accounts 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. 5 is emergency, 4 is big fun, 3 is your house, 2 is your daily expenses, and 1 is just your everyday fun expenses. So now let's talk about how much money from your wage you're going to put into these bank accounts. So either you make a lot of money, has no issue breaking up their wage and surviving off of the percentages that we put into each of your bank accounts. Or the alternative, you don't earn a lot of money, but you don't have a lot of expenses, therefore can do the same thing. We've covered the emergency account and how much money you need to have in it. Your bank account number 4, your big fun. At the moment, you should put 10% of your weekly, fortnightly, or monthly wage into that bank account. Just flat 10%. Whatever it is, put it into that account every time you get paid. Now, your house account ideally would be 50% of your wage every single time you get paid. Doesn't matter how much you got. You made $100, $1,000, or $10,000. Put 50% of that money into your house account every single time you get paid. Work that percentage down to 20% based on the next 2 accounts we're going to talk about. So if you have lots of expenses and you can only afford to put 20% of your wage into that bank account, put 20% of your wage into that bank account. But the more you save now, the better off you're going to be in the future. Your daily expenses account number 2. I personally save up to $3,000. I started with, I think it was nothing. I think I started with nothing in that bank account. I got paid and I put 25% of my salary into that bank account. What this allowed me to do is work out that 25% of my salary is much more money than what my expenses are at the time. So let's say I spend $100 a week just to live. So some goes to petrol and some goes to my phone bill because I paid my phone bill this week. And let's say 25% of my salary was $400, I would have $300 left over. So I put it into that bank account anyway. And I saved this bank account up to $3,000. So when big expenses like, I don't know, a car service, or I think to pay my car insurance or my car rego, if all of them hit me at once, even my gym membership, if all of them hit me at once, then I'd be able to take money out of that bank account and not have to worry about taking it from anywhere else. And then once I hit the 3,000 mark, any more money that comes into that bank account, I then take out of it and I divide it up between my other accounts. So let's just do a scenario real quick. Let's say I have $3,000 in my daily expenses account and I didn't spend any money whatsoever this week on my expenses. Let's say 25% of my salary when I get paid is $400. So I've already got $3,000 in that account. I don't want to put any more in there because I don't need it in there. It's not earning the interest. What am I going to do with that $400? I myself would put it into my house account, but you could put $100 into your everyday spending for your fun stuff. You could put $300 into your holiday account. It's overflow. You've accounted and managed your money to get it up to a surplus where you feel comfortable with any new expenses come into your life, and then you can use that money elsewhere. It's the same with the emergency. Once your emergency gets to your 3 months of living expenses and your daily expenses gets to your peak, I just set 3,000 as my limit because I worked out that's how much I need to pay off everything if it all came at once. You start getting extra money to save up for your house, and that starts piling up. Or you want to go on a holiday, it saves up way faster. Or you want to buy a new pair of shoes and you want to actually spend a bit of cash. You can do that because you've prepared for it. So in your daily expenses account, I put about 25% of my wage. Based on if your expenses are higher, it might be 40% of your wage that needs to go in that. Just take that from your house account percentage and work that down. We'll go into more detail in the tracker episode, but this is just to get an idea of what you should be doing. And finally, your first account, your everyday spending account, I just leave a minimum of $500 in that account, and then I put 15% of my weekly or fortnightly wage into it. Every time I get paid, I put 15% into there. So for me, it works out to be about $150 a fortnight. And I can do everything I really want to do within a fortnight. You know, I buy some lunches, I might spend a bit of money like going out with friends, but it's generally enough for me to live. If you're spending more than $150 a fortnight just on leisure activities yourself, you probably need to try and make some changes. Purely because it's a lot of money over a lot of time and you're trying to save money, that's the first place you can cut it. You may not need to do everything you're possibly doing. Do you really need to spend $100 on drinks out at the club? Do you really need to be buying like designer shoes every single time you have money to do it? I know they're crazy examples, but it's the point that that's probably the place that you can start saving your money and putting it into other accounts for your future. And that's all it really is. 5 bank accounts. With those rules, we've got 15% in your everyday spending, 25% in your daily expenses, 50% if you can in your house expenses, 10% in your big fun holiday account, and then a minimum of $25 a fortnight, so $12.50 a week into your emergency fund, and until that builds up to $2,000 or 3 months of your living expenses. You've also figured out what you need to look for in a bank, so the criteria that they need to offer you, so no account fees, make sure that they let you have 5 bank accounts, make sure they offer the best interest rate possible, so ING or probably UBank here in Australia at the moment offer the highest interest rate with the easiest criteria to meet. I think the ING one is $1,000 a month needs to go into that bank account, which it doesn't just mean deposit from your wage. You can transfer money from your other accounts and then transfer it back and you get 2.8%, which is really, really good. I think the default for a maxi saver at Westpac or Bank SA is 0.5%, which is nothing. It's very, very low. And that's it. All you now need to do is call up the bank, go into a branch, or do the online process that the bank offers for the one that you think is best for you. It may be ING, it may be UBank, it may be Bank SA, Westpac, St. George, ANZ, Commonwealth. They're just examples here in Australia, but the same thing applies anywhere you are. And don't get freaked out because changing banks is pretty simple. The level of effort that it will take is like nothing. It might take you a week to do the whole lot. And when I say a week, like a couple of hours each day, max. Once you put the process in place, you're going to be set. You don't have to do anything after that. Just monitor it every now and then, make sure your interest rate stays around the same because it can change, and just keep putting your money into your bank accounts how you've set it up so that you can build your wealth, build your savings, and feel comfortable about your finances. So you've opened your bank accounts, you want to transfer some money across, not all of it, but some across. And then when you have some money in, let's say, your daily expenses account, you want to go tell anyone that is a direct debitor, such as your gym membership, might take out $10 a week or $10 a fortnight. Make sure you tell them to now take it out of this bank account so they don't try and take it out of them when you close those bank accounts. And then also tell your employer, the person who pays you, to pay your wage into the bank account that you think is best before you divide all your money. Just make sure you tell them that you have new bank accounts, what they are, and usually just asking your boss, they'll be able to sort out the paperwork for you. It's not too much trouble. It's basically just writing some numbers on some pieces of paper and giving that information to the right person. Once that's all working well for you, so you've got your direct debits going into there and your wage going into there, now it's time to close these bank accounts. Make sure you've transferred all your money across. There's nothing left in them. They're just empty accounts sitting there. Contact the bank, go into a branch, follow the online process and close them forever. When they say, why are you leaving us? Say, I found a better deal, I found a better setup, I'm not interested in staying with you anymore, I'm closing all my bank accounts and get rid of them. They're your new bank accounts, you have 5 set up, ready to go. You know how much you're going to be putting into them, and we'll talk about that more in the tracker, but you've just got an idea, it's set up. You might have $2,000 handy that you put into your emergency account. You can start figuring out this process, how you split up your money and what works for you, building up a bit of savings. And what we're going to do with this information in the following videos is use that information to build a tracker that basically lets you know where all your money is going. It's super easy to do it, and with that information you can then make improvements to your financial situation. So the first 2 things that you've done so far is decided to make a change and figure out what your expenses are. This challenge is to find a bank that works for you and then set yourself up, actually go and do it, and start working towards those goals, such as your emergency account, getting it to $2,000 minimum and building it to 3 months of your expenses, your daily expenses, building that up to an amount where you could pay so many of your bills and take all the money out of that account if you had to pay for everything, and still not have to touch any of your other bank accounts, and start dividing your wage up in a way that allows you to build your bank accounts up. Stick to it. Be disciplined. Work on it. It will benefit you greatly, and you'll see in the tracker episode what I mean. We're going to talk so much about this spreadsheet that you're going to be like, wow, this is making my life so much better. I've been trialing it with my friends and it's really helping them out, and it's so simple. It just takes a bit of effort. It's all it is, a process. Follow the process. Just keep in mind that there are always things you can do to put yourself in a better financial situation. However, this is just covering the basics to get you into a position to begin this journey. This is the first real big step. You have to change banks potentially, or change the setup of your bank accounts with your own banker in order to achieve this goal. This is where it begins. I hope that you've learned something today. I hope that you actually start following the process. Apply the process. I'll see you in the next video where we're going to talk about the next step to take after setting up all your bank accounts. For now, go through the process online, find the bank for you, set up 5 bank accounts, make sure that they offer the criteria you need, put yourself in the position to begin this journey.